Okay, so welcome to Boston Lodge on a hot, sunny August day. I shall talk first about vacuum brake connectors. Not a very exciting part, but this is a vacuum brake connector. They hook together and connect the vacuum brakes down the train. Very important items. Needless to say, you can't buy them anymore from ready-made, so we have to make our own. And as you can see, they're quite a complicated shape. And if you were to machine one of these from a solid lump of metal, it would take ages. Even with a CNC machine, it would take a long time to make. So what we have is we have a wooden pattern for casting these. And we send the wooden pattern off to a foundry where they'll cast these in iron, and then that will leave us with just a little bit of machining to finish the job off. So over there we've got the patterns for these to go away. This is the pattern for making two of those connectors that we just looked at. Doesn't look like it at the moment, but if you look at the other side, you'll see that's the other part of it. So what happens is that this frame sits around there, and then this is filled with sand that sets. It's a special casting sand, and forms a mould. And then the same is done on the other side, and the two halves are set together to make each side, but also to make the pattern, make it hollow, there are things called core boxes. So this is a core box. So in here will be put some setting sand. So you can imagine out of this mould will come a tube cylinder shape of sand, which will then be fitted in here. This black painted bit means a core. That's a core print. So the core of sand will sit in the mould there. So it's quite a skilled process, moulding and casting. It's very old. Boston Lodge had its own pattern shop where my office is now, years ago, and we still make wooden patterns like this. And I say these are going off now to a foundry, probably the one in Liverpool. We'll have about 30 castings made up, so that we can machine them. We'll sell some to the Welsh Pool Railway, and I think the Vale of Rydal Railway might need some for their Baldwin project for the Welsh Owned Heritage Railway, and the rest will go into stock and they'll get used on all sorts of vacuum brake fitting projects. Right, this is Merthin Emrys, which being that it's high summer, you would expect it to be out in service, hauling trains every day, but unfortunately it's in many pieces, as you can see. It's because some weeks ago we found a small crack in one of the firebox lower corners, and then on investigating, we found that all 4 outer firebox corners were cracked. So obviously this meant we had to take the loco to service and start doing unplanned repairs, which has taken 2 people many weeks to complete. The boiler repair is now done, but it's meant cutting out large areas of plate around the lower inner firebox, and also 2 patches on the outer throat plates. Anyway, the loco is now being reassembled, and it should be back in service in about a week or so. It passed a hydraulic test yesterday, so the boiler inspector will be coming to see it as on a steam test next, once it's all reassembled. So this is the piece of plate that we first found the crack in. So this is the throat plate and the firebox side, so the fire is in here. Here are the holes for the rivets to the foundation ring, and you can see there's a small crack there. So it's below foundation ring level. And if you look at the other side, which is obviously normally hidden behind the foundation ring, you'll see this grooving, stress, corrosion, cracking that's obviously developed over many years. This is, this will be a 1967 Hunslet piece of boiler that has obviously been started that crack from probably day 1 in service, and it's slowly developed, so it's come through to the fireside and allowed water to start to escape. So, as I say, we then found traces of this in all 4 firebox corners, so we had to do something about it. But hopefully now, having done all this work, having renewed all the lower inner firebox sides over the years, the boiler, certainly in that area, will now be good for many years to come. Obviously, accessing the area, the lower firebox with the loco in service is very difficult. So the power bogies have both been out, and this area of cradle frame has been off on both sides, which meant removing these fitted bolts, which is not an easy task. As I say, the inner box was cut out, but we couldn't just cut to this level here, just above the affected area. The normal practice is to go up above the first row of stays. So on the inside of the firebox, we've had to cut out this area about this high, all the way along, around, and obviously both sides and both ends of the inner firebox. I mentioned the outer throat plate was cut away as well, in 2 places where the blowdown valve attaches. It screws onto this threaded bush here. This is the water side, this is the outside, but there was a previous repair and work done here on this boss at some point in the past, which has given trouble. You can see there's weld around there, so this area at both ends was considered not very good. So again, we've cut out one row of stays up. There's the stays been cut off and replaced, and obviously the rivets down here had to be all drilled out, hammered out, and then new pieces of plate welded in. and then the welds were inspected by a company called Ultrascan, who do ultrasonic testing and magnetic particle inspection. They checked the welds, and then new rivets were put in, heated up and then hammered over, and new stays were screwed in place, being as it's an old boiler, so it has screwed stays. And then, as I say, the hydraulic test was the other day, and the boiler passed that test. This piece here is the external blowdown repair. You can see the new weld round there and the new rivets and the new stays. This is the blowdown valve, which allows you to drain water from the boiler under steam pressure, which basically it removes any solids that have built up in the foundation ring area, and so it helps keep the boiler water clean and reduces the dissolved solids in there. So you can see all the rivets around here have been replaced, and these stays have been replaced. And say all inside, all the plate all around there has been replaced. Right, so here we have the Linda. The chassis has just been, well, just a little while ago, it's been grip blasted, so it's completely cleaned of all the paint. We found a few cracks here and there, which have been or will be welded up, but basically it's not in too bad condition. So now the process has started to reassemble the stretchers. This stretcher's been refitted, as you can see. It's got new fitted bolts holding this stretcher in place. The valve gear, this way shaft, has been reinserted. We're going to do some modifications to the valve gear. We've got a design for a new expansion link, which should improve the valve events over the originals. That we're going to be sourcing from a wire erosion company in a very hard steel, because the Loco works quite hard compared to its original design requirement, and it yeah, the valve gear, particularly being as it retains its original slide valves, has to work very, very hard indeed. Here's one of its slide valves. See, basically it's upside down at the moment. That this area works on the valve face, and it's always being pushed down by the steam pressure. So it generates a lot of friction dragging across the cast iron valve face, which in turn puts a load on all the valve gear, so that if you ever on the footplate of the Linder with a driver notching up under steam, you'll see he has to put his foot on the reverser and grab the lever with both hands, and it'll be fighting with him. That's because of the load generated by these slide valves all the way back through the reversing gear to the reverser. This is carriage number 18. As you can see, it's having a mechanical overhaul. The wheels have been reprofiled. The bodywork is part rubbed down because it was sent out of the carriage works while they had the roof done. And it's come in here and had this mechanical overhaul. The bogies are interesting in that they are original spooner bogies from the 1870s, modified with bolt-on brackets here and here for the brake gear, because that came in the 1890s. But the axle boxes are original, plain bearings. The centre stretcher is original. It's been modified. It's this would have been a cup, and there would have been a ball centre on the bottom of the underframe of the vehicle originally. So a lot of the weight would have been carried in the centre, and then there were supporting springs inside here and here in the bogie. Anyway, that was changed in the I think the 1960s to try and improve the ride, because the ride was quite rolly in these vehicles, reputedly. So the solution, or the improvement, was to put all the weight of the vehicle on these side bearers onto some plates welded onto the underframe underneath, so all the weight goes on here, and then the secondary springs were moved outboard on these bolt-on frame additions that you can see here and on the other side. And the other modification is the addition of dampers. These are basically car dampers. They work very well at damping the rock and roll, but essentially it's still an 1870s spooner designed bogie doing the job that it was originally designed for. Right, this what looks like a random pile of metal bits is in fact a lot of the components for the bogies for the Talyllyn carriages. These are suspension parts, and then the top plank arrangement over there. So there's a lot of work gone into these, because obviously we've got to build 6 bogies. We're building all 6 all at once, which makes sense. So our new fabricator has been busily welding all these bits together over the last few weeks, ready to start assembling the bogies. Here we've got James Spooner's cab parts ready for assembly. We haven't been able to make quite as much progress with James Spooner lately because of the Merlin Emrys problem. We had to fix the Merlin because obviously it's very important for the service. But hopefully we'll be back on James Spooner's cab and final assembly hopefully in the next few weeks. So here we have Carnarvon Castle, which, as you can see, now has some of the original fiberglass bodywork reinstated. The rewiring is pretty much all done. The mechanical improvements are all done, and the cab interior, the controls are all pretty much there now. Again, we haven't been able to do quite as much on this because of the problems with the Merlin Emrys, but again, hopefully we'll be on with this again soon. Obviously we've got to do things like cab windows. We've got to make some infill pieces between the new cab and the original bodywork to tie all the bodywork into one. But hopefully, again, in the next few weeks, this will be finished off and back in traffic. This is the Pixie, which, as you know, it's an outside contract job we've been doing. The chassis is now pretty much complete. All the mechanical parts have been gone through, sorted out, so it's pretty much all back together. We've just recently had a delivery of more parts from Kent. We've had the boiler, which is at Midford Yard, ready to install. We've had the saddle tank, which is outside, ready for us to look at either repairing the original or maybe reusing some of the original parts, or maybe a complete copy. We're not sure yet. We're going to try and use as much original as possible, but still make it as good as new, basically. So the loco's coming back together. We've got all the parts, and the job progresses slowly but carefully. The next stage on this is that all the mechanical parts are going to be stripped off the chassis again, and the chassis is going to go into the carriage works to be painted. So that's the next phase for this part of the loco. Right, so here's the Baldwin 460. It's now been reassembled with remachined axle boxes, a new piston rod on one side. It's all been put back together. It's had an annual boiler exam, so there's a few little details on the motion to do, but basically it's done, ready for some test running, and then hopefully it'll pull some trains. Right, these are 3-foot gauge wheel sets for the Isle of Man Government Railways. We recently finished the overhaul of 2 pairs of bogies, which have now gone away. These wheel sets are for another pair of bogies that will be coming to us in the next few weeks, and also another set of wheels for re-wheeling a carriage on the island. So we buy in the wheel sets complete from our supplier, but we cast the we have the foundry cast the axle boxes to our pattern, and then we machine the box to take a roller bearing, which is a modern arrangement, and replaces the old plain bearing axle box. But externally, the axle box looks just the same as the original, so there's no appearance change. But of course, you don't have to oil these axle boxes; they get greased once a year, and that's all the maintenance they need. Right, it's shameless plug time. You may know that my wife, Rebecca, is an artist. She paints under her maiden name, Rebecca Kitchen, and she paints horses, people, pets, and railway locomotives and other railway events. So anyway, some month or so ago she did this picture, which is features me in this location just here behind me, and one of the railway's horse dandy wagons. Anyway, she's had some prints done, and these are for sale, so if you're interested in one of these or any one of her other railway or people or animals portraits, yeah, get in touch with Rebecca Kitchen. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to a rather warm carriage shed here up at Glamourputh. Here we are with the Alco Mountaineer. As you've probably read in various places, you've probably heard that a group of people are planning to restore the engine. I am leading that group at the moment. So let me tell you a bit about what we're going to do. So, as everyone knows, the Alco's been out of traffic for quite a long time now, and there's been a lot of thinking about what to do with it in that meantime, and the railway has changed what it would like to do with its loco fleet, and now with the shorter trains and more diverse service, there's an opportunity to use it. So what the plan is so far, we're currently clearing out the depot or workshop at Glamourputh. It needs a new roof and some rewiring inside, and once all that's done, we're going to take the Mountaineer in there and we're going to dismantle it and examine every part so we can find out exactly what condition it's in. If you come to any local railway pub, if you volunteer, you'll probably hear many stories, but we need to do proper crack testing and measurements to see what is wrong with it. The belief at the moment is it's just really, really tired and needs a lot of attention. So once we've done that and we've taken things apart, because we're up at Glamourputh, we won't get disturbed by the usual day-to-day hustle and bustle at Boston Lodge, so we can take our time and leave things sort of where we left them. And then once we know what condition each part is in, we'll then agree a work plan with Boston Lodge, and we'll hopefully have some funding in place as well, so we can say, look, please would you sort out the boiler, and then hopefully in 6 to 8 weeks time they will have sorted the boiler out for us. And that is the general gist of it. We are running lots of fundraising at the moment. You can buy merchandise from eBay if you just type in Mountaineer. And also we're running a launch event for the restoration on the 27th of August. Myself and 19 other people are going to be tying a rope around the flat front coupling, and we're going to pull it from Pencob Points, which is where Boston Lodge joins onto the Festhill main line, and we're going to pull it right around the curve into the harbour station right at the end of the platform just before it goes on to the coaling stage. Each donation towards this, you can find it on Facebook if you go onto the Mountaineer Facebook page. It's £12.65 per guess, and allow us to get cracking on sending one bit of it away to be mended.
depends on what people are doing. Plenty of governments don't hold the VR connection up to